Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today I'm joined by Alex. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alex Wentzo. As you can hear from my accent, I'm a French person, but I'm really global. I've traveled all over the world, work in every country. So what do? I run a business around process intelligence. Globally, we leverage information data to help our customer to make, some actionable, insight, provide actionable insight. So to help them to run their business much more efficiently.
And right before we start the podcast, we were chatting about the importance of flexibility. So tell me a little bit about your experience with flexibility and how you think it has improved efficiency.
Yeah, no, as you mentioned just earlier, we were talking about going to the office, and I would say, probably before COVID, I was very French, a bit old school. I would want my staff to be in the office because I will have a feeling of management, knowing they are here. With a wrong perception to think they are productive, because they're in the office. So I was just telling you, I think in a way through COVID, we have learned to work differently, being hybrid and really to bring this flexibility where if it's needed to be in the office for collaboration, for learning, sometimes, if you're a junior, it's great to have a mentor or tutor locally, a bit easier. But at the same time, if you don't need to, you can, optimize so much your time instead of wasting your time through commuting, which, everyone lose hours of, of free time, not even work, free time, on the level of stress that is linked to that. So I feel today, this better balance of being able to manage the hybrid versus office versus remote is great. I will think in a few years we'll get more data to measure really the level of productivity, how we have increased, or maybe the rate of burnout being less, right? So let's see.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I've helped over 2,000 clients transition to figuring out their flexible work schedules, and definitely coming to the office for collaborative activities, learning activities, mentoring is quite helpful. But most of the stuff that people do is individual work, their head down work, focused work, and that's much better done at home. No reason to come to the office for that. Now, you focus on process automation. I want to tie the process automation to flexible work, to remote work, because one of the things that's really important when you're working remotely is having a better grip on your processes, on your systems. So tell me a little bit about that. How come you've been helping companies, what you do to help companies improve their grip on their processes when people work remotely? Because when you work in the office, it's much more intuitive to do stuff, to have your processes. Some companies don't do nearly as much work on their processes when they're in the office because it's kind of like old school, we know what to do. When you're working remotely, you need to be much more intentional, or in a hybrid modality, you need to be much more intentional about your processes. So what are your thoughts about companies managing their processes and how they need to do this when they're working in a hybrid or remote setting?
It's a great question. I think maybe to give a bit of background, what have changed over the last 5-10 years, but obviously today it's obvious, is the volume of data. Before, of course, large organization will have some volume of data, but today, even an individual, even a small medium-sized company, I've got large amount of data through very fragmented system of IT, right? Some use, Microsoft Office, some, very complex accounting system, others. So it's getting very complex. Over the last, 10 years, AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning have really helped, vendor like us and our client to build some really innovative, intelligent process management solution. So globally, how we have this organization is we leverage all the data, through, we were able to consume these trillions of lines of data and identify very quickly the bottlenecks. And thanks to the AI, we can have the prescriptive approach. So what should we do, to become more efficient? But even predictive, we can, at a certain degree, anticipate the future based on the past, behavior, which is amazing. So, as you said, how we help this organization to, hybrid organization is, I think when you look at your employees working, it's very hard to understand the productivity, if they're efficient, if they make any mistake. And when, if you think about the year 2000, we used to have some business analysts interviewing employees to say, hey, tell me how you work. So the employee will tell you, what they want first, but how they work, big picture. They will never think about the exception. What if my laptop doesn't work? What if internet is down? So now what we're doing, we still ask them, because I think it's important to involve them in the process of changing and improvement, but we also look at the data, because the data doesn't lie. So you can say, hey, the data will show you 80% of the time you do this way, but 20% you don't. And here, how we can address that. Locally, sometimes it's an issue of the employee that require maybe training or better mentoring. Sometimes it's just a process has not been documented or communicated properly, or sometimes there is system or other reason why. But through this AI and machine learning, as I said, we can really understand the bottleneck. We can do prescription, and for their customer globally, the better, we enhance the customer experience, right? They get quicker, faster access to their service or the product they order. We can automate some of the tasks, because suddenly we understand which tasks can be automated, and at the same time, how eventually technology can replace some low added value task where the employee used to spend time, and really help the employee to spend more time on the high value. So it's not like, hey, we are going to replace, the employee by a robot or this sort of thing. No, if technology can do a better job, quicker, more efficient, let's do it. And then the employee has got more time and probably feel more valuable to focus on the high value task, yeah.
And so go ahead. Yeah, so these high value tasks, I imagine, are going to be more innovative and creative. And so I'd like to have a little bit of a conversation with you and pick your brain on what you find are the outcomes of more automation of these low value added tasks, and how they boost productivity. And I've seen this especially, like I said, for firms that have more hybrid and remote workers tend to adopt more automation processes, because it's more important for them to be deliberate about how they manage their processes and systems. And it's harder for them to coordinate in the office, so they do more of this looking at coordination through digital means, so they're more digitized. And so especially in that context, thinking about how their innovation is boosted through creating automation of low value added processes.
Well, I think you said something amazing, Doctor, is when you say the morale. If you think about, an employee doing the same task thousands of times, an hour or per day, it's not very exciting. It's become boring. The morale dropped, and sometimes mistakes start to appear. If we, through AI, machine learning, we can really help the employee to say, you know what, technology is going to help. We are going to automate these tasks, don't worry. And then you can work on something much more strategic or interesting. Or then I feel, it does boost the morale of the employee. And they can, even in terms of growth path, they can really look at learning new competency when the old school, automation of the task is not relevant anymore.
And so these employees are learning. One of the things I find is a challenge is that there is a fear among employees of like, oh, well, am I going to be replaced by a robot? And you're saying that they're not going to be. But what do you find are effective strategies for managers to help convince their employees that, hey, you're not actually going to be replaced by a robot? But how do you do that? How do you have those conversations?
Well, I think through clear communication, in a way, depending on the role, on the position of the employees, some of the executives, are very familiar with generative AI, such as ChatGPT. So they're quite familiar with the concept, and they already see the value, right? They feel it's like sort of digital assistant in a way. They can get the job done quicker and better, more efficiently. In time to value is very quick. For other role, maybe not as familiar around all this transformation, all this innovation, it's like any change management project. You have to communicate, involve them, show them the value they will get personally, and also show them, how they are going to grow as an individual, how we're going to help them to learn new competency, which will be much more interesting for their own person, and even for the market value in the long term, when the sort of cumbersome, boring task, repetitive, will be covered by software, AI, or bots. So there's a lot of communication, I think, more than anything else.
Okay. And yes, definitely upskilling is very, very important. Yeah. Now, as you're looking forward, and as we're finishing up the conversation, as you're looking forward to the future, what do you see as the future in the next 2 to 3 years for process automation, especially in hybrid and remote companies, but more broadly, with the growth of various AI technology? We have announcements, it seems like every week, about Google and Microsoft and OpenAI putting out new tools and techniques. And clearly there's more and more opportunity for automation of lower value tasks. So what are you seeing in the future in the next 2 to 3 years?
It's obviously 2 or 3 years seems like a very, very, very close, but it's very fast. So much change can happen in this space during this lapse of time. First, I will say, I believe, and we start to see that, a lot of initiatives such as digital transformation or data-driven decision-making, initiative or compliance, obviously, are going to leverage more and more AI or machine learning because it's leveraging all this complex data that, before we will make, mistakes or we couldn't manage the volume, right? In terms of trend, as you mentioned, a few vendors investing and launching a lot of AI. I think we are going to see a bit of slowdown in the coming months where regulation will take over to understand that, is it good for the human being to low AI, to have so much power in a way. Or we start to see that, right, in terms of all this HR related question with AI. It's a very important point. Obviously, we're in a very competitive world. Some dictature, or some countries where they can have access to all the data continue to progress very well in AI. I think more democracies will slow down, try to define laws around the good use of this type of technology to be prudent. And after, I think AI, naturally will, with the machine learning, will continue to evolve, but with always, I think, two main elements. One is to provide business solution, really to help individual or human being to solve a business challenge. So it's not a pure technology, it's not just a piece of software or algorithm. I think that's the first point. And the second point, how we can make it accessible to anyone. And I think ChatGPT have done sort of very decent job. If you think about AI with Alan Turing in the 40s, it was designed for subject matter expert. You had to come out of MIT, to understand what it meant. So I feel today, in 2 or 3 years, it should be accessible by a large majority of our peers.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, Alex. This was very helpful.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Gleb.
And thank you. You too. And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you checked out the show. and make sure to leave a review. It helps other people discover the show, and it helps us improve the show. All right, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.